The neon lights of New Tokyo's interstellar district cast strange shadows across Jake Morrison's face as he checked his watch for the third time. 2300 hours exactly, and his date was fashionably late by human standards. The restaurant. Around him buzzed with conversation in a dozen alien languages, the universal translator in his ear working overtime to make sense of the multilingual chaos. Jake adjusted his collar nervously. This wasn't just any date. Commander Zara Vel'nathi of the Tyrannian Imperial Fleet had specifically requested this meeting, and when a 7-foot-tall warrior princess from a militaristic alien empire asks you to dinner, you don't exactly say no, especially not when she'd saved your entire research station from pirate raiders 3 months ago. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The memory still made his pulse quicken. He'd been just another xenobiology researcher, studying deep space phenomena when the Crimson Fang pirates had attacked Station Kepler 442. While everyone else had cowered in the safe rooms, Zara had single-handedly carved through 24 raiders. With nothing but her energy sword, and what could only be described as righteous fury, their eyes had met across the carnage-strewn corridor, and Jake had felt something shift in the universe. She'd been magnificent, terrifying, and absolutely breathtaking all at once. Her crimson skin had been unmarked despite the battle, her violet hair flowing like liquid starlight, even in the artificial gravity. When she'd asked if he was injured, her voice had carried the melodic accent of her people, turning even casual concern into something that made his heart skip beats. "You are the scientist," she'd stated rather than asked, her golden eyes studying him with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously exposed and protected. "Xenobiology," he'd managed, trying not to stare at the way her form fit in combat. Armor enhanced rather than concealed her impressive figure. "I study alien life forms." Her expression had shifted then, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. How convenient. "I am an alien life form." That had been the beginning of what Jake had assumed was simply friendship. Over the following months, they'd exchanged messages across the void of space. She'd send him tactical reports that somehow always included personal observations about the world she visited. He'd respond with research data that gradually became more personal, sharing his thoughts about life among the stars. Now she was coming to Earth for the first time, and Jake had suggested dinner at Cosmos, the most exclusive interspecies restaurant in the city. He'd spent half his monthly salary on reservations, partly because he wanted to impress her, and partly because he wasn't entirely sure what constituted appropriate dining for a Tyrannian warrior. The restaurant's atmosphere. Generator hummed softly, maintaining the perfect blend of Earth-normal and Tyrannian atmospheric conditions. Jake had researched Tyrannian customs extensively, learning that they valued directness, strength, and what their culture termed worthy challenges. He'd practiced conversation topics that would demonstrate his intelligence without appearing weak, a delicate balance when dealing with a species that had conquered half the known galaxy through superior military might, preparing and narrating. This story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. A commotion near the entrance caught his attention. The Mater D, a dignified Altarian with 4 arms and excellent customer service skills, was bowing deeply to someone just out of Jake's line of sight. Other diners turned to look, conversations dying as an unmistakable presence entered the restaurant. Zara Vel'nathi didn't simply walk into a room. She commanded it. Tonight, she'd traded her usual military armor for what Jake assumed was formal Tyrannian attire. The outfit was stunning, a flowing ensemble that managed to be both elegant and practical, with subtle armor plating worked into the design. Her crimson skin seemed to glow in the restaurant's ambient lighting, and her violet hair was arranged in elaborate braids that Jake recognized from his research as indicating high rank and unmarried status. She spotted him immediately, her golden eyes locking onto his across the crowded restaurant. The smile that spread across her face made Jake's breath catch. It wasn't just beautiful. It was predatory in a way that made his pulse race for reasons he didn't entirely want to examine. "Jake Morrison," she said as she approached, her voice carrying easily over the restaurant's noise. Other diners continued to stare, but Zara seemed oblivious to the attention. "You look appropriately formal for this occasion." "Zara," he stood, offering what he hoped was a respectful bow. His research had indicated that Tyrannians appreciated proper protocol. "You look absolutely stunning." Her smile widened, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human normal. "I am pleased you approve. Shall we proceed with the evening's activities?" The way she phrased it made Jake wonder if he'd missed something in translation, but he gestured toward their table. The Mater D guided them to a prime location with a view of Earth's glittering cityscape and the space stations orbiting beyond. Jake had specifically requested this table, thinking Zara might enjoy seeing her fleet's command ship among the vessels and orbital dock dot as they settled into their seats. Jake couldn't help but notice how Zara's presence seemed to fill the space around them. She carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to command, her movements precise and purposeful. Even sitting, she maintained perfect posture that spoke of military training and noble bearing. "This establishment is impressive," Zara observed, her golden eyes taking in the restaurant's elaborate decor. "The atmospheric controls are remarkably sophisticated. I had not expected Earth technology to accommodate Tyrannian physiology so precisely." "We've learned a lot about interspecies cooperation in recent years," Jake replied, proud of humanity's progress. "The restaurant industry was actually one of the first to embrace universal hospitality standards." Zara nodded approvingly. "Adaptation and accommodation are signs of a mature civilization. Your species continues to exceed expectations." The way she said "your species" with such warmth made Jake feel oddly proud, as if he personally represented all of humanity. He'd always been just a researcher, more comfortable with data than people. But something about Zara made him want to be worthy of her respect. Their server approached, a nervous-looking human who clearly recognized Zara's rank insignia. Jake had done his homework here too, learning enough about Tyrannian hierarchy to understand that Commander Vel'nathi was essentially alien royalty. The golden threading in her outfit and the ceremonial blade at her side marked her as nobility from one of the great houses. "What would you recommend?" Jake asked, gesturing toward the menu. "I researched Tyrannian cuisine, but I thought you might prefer to choose." Zara's expression softened slightly. "You researched my people's food preferences?" "I researched everything I could about Tyrannian culture," Jake admitted, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. "I wanted tonight to be perfect." Something flickered in Zara's golden eyes, an emotion too complex for Jake to identify. She leaned forward slightly, her attention focusing on him with laser-like intensity. "You studied my people's ways for this meeting?" "Of course," Jake said, wondering if he'd somehow offended her. "I learned about proper greetings, conversation, topics, dining etiquette. I even practiced the correct pronunciation of formal titles, though I'm probably still getting it wrong." Zara was quiet for a long moment, studying his face with an expression that made Jake increasingly nervous. Had he misunderstood something fundamental about Tyrannian customs? He'd been so careful to follow the protocols he'd found in the cultural databases. "Jake Morrison," she said finally, her voice carrying a strange formality that hadn't been there before. "You honor me with your dedication to understanding my people's ways." Relief flooded through him. "I just wanted to show respect. You've done so much for humanity, for me personally. The least I could do was learn how to be a proper dinner companion." "A proper dinner companion," Zara repeated, and Jake could have sworn he heard something like amusement in her tone. "Yes, that is certainly what you have proven yourself to be." They ordered their meal, Zara selecting traditional Tyrannian dishes, while Jake opted for a fusion cuisine that promised to be safe for human consumption. The conversation flowed easily once they began eating, touching on Jake's research, Zara's military campaigns, and their shared fascination with the diversity of life among the stars. Your work with quantum biological interfaces is particularly intriguing, Zara said, delicately consuming what looked like glowing fruit. The applications for military biotechnology could be revolutionary. Jake nearly choked on his fusion noodles. Military applications? I hadn't considered that angle. My research is focused on medical applications, maybe environmental restoration. Of course. Zara's smile was indulgent. Your people's peaceful nature is well documented. But consider the possibilities for enhancing warrior capabilities, improving battle survival rates, accelerating healing during combat. The way she discussed warfare with such casual expertise reminded Jake that despite her beauty and charm, Zara was fundamentally a warrior from a conquest-oriented culture. It should have been intimidating, but instead he found it fascinating. She represented everything humanity was not, yet here they were, sharing dinner and finding common ground. You think differently than I expected, Jake observed. Most military leaders I've met are focused on immediate tactical advantages. You're thinking in terms of long-term civilization development. Zara's expression grew serious. A true leader must consider not just victory, but what comes after victory. My people have conquered many worlds, but conquest without vision leads only to rebellion and collapse. Is that why you saved our research station? Long-term strategic thinking? Initially, yes, Zara admitted, her golden eyes meeting his directly. A research facility produces knowledge, and knowledge benefits all civilized species. But my motivations evolved during our encounter. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Evolved how? I found myself curious about the human who remained calm during a pirate attack, who offered to help tend wounded raiders even after they had threatened his life. Such behavior suggested either foolishness or a form of courage my people do not typically recognize. And which did you decide it was? Zara's smile was subtle but warm. I am still determining that answer. The conversation continued through multiple courses, ranging from philosophical discussions about interspecies ethics to lighthearted exchanges about the absurdities of universal translation technology. Jake found himself relaxing despite the formal setting, enjoying Zara's sharp wit and unexpected humor. As they shared dessert, a spectacular creation that seemed to contain actual stars suspended in crystallized matrix, Zara's demeanor shifted. Again, she sat straighter, her expression taking on the formal bearing Jake had seen when she addressed her troops. Jake Morrison, she began, her voice carrying new weight. This evening has been most satisfactory. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Jake replied, though something in her tone made him wary. I certainly did. Your demonstration of cultural awareness, your respectful attention to proper protocols, and your fascinating conversation have all exceeded my expectations. Jake smiled, pleased that his preparation had paid off. Thank you. I really wanted tonight to go well. Indeed it has, Zara continued, reaching into a concealed pocket of her outfit. So well, in fact, that I believe we are ready to proceed to the next phase. Next phase? Jake asked, confused. Zara withdrew what appeared to be an ornate crystal pendant on a chain of precious metal. The crystal pulsed with internal light, and Jake's xenobiology training immediately recognized it as some form of living technology. The craftsmanship was exquisite, clearly ancient, and incredibly valuable. Jake Morrison of Earth, Zara said formally, rising from her chair. I, Zara Vel'nathi, commander of the Third Fleet and daughter of House Vel'nathi, offer you this bonding crystal as symbol of my intention to join our lives in permanent union. The restaurant fell silent. Every conversation stopped as diners turned to stare at their table. Jake's brain struggled to process what was happening, the words echoing in his mind without quite making sense. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "Did you just propose marriage?" "I offer formal bonding," Zara clarified, though her expression suggested the distinction was minor. "According to the customs you so diligently studied, a male who demonstrates proper courtship protocols and proves his worthiness through respectful attention is declaring his intention to bond." Jake's mouth fell open. "Wait, what?" "No, I was just trying to be a good dinner companion. I researched etiquette because I wanted to be polite, not because I was courting you." Zara's golden eyes narrowed slightly. "You studied my people's ways extensively. You chose a formal setting appropriate for bonding ceremonies. You demonstrated knowledge of proper protocols and showed respect for my rank and lineage. These are precisely the actions of a male seeking to prove his worthiness for bonding." "But I wasn't trying to prove worthiness for marriage," Jake protested, his voice rising slightly. "I was trying to be respectful because you're important. And I didn't want to accidentally insult you or your culture." The crystal in Zara's hand pulsed brighter, as if responding to her emotional state. Around them, the restaurant remained silent, every patron watching the drama unfold with fascination. "You refuse my offer?" Zara's voice carried a dangerous edge that reminded Jake exactly how formidable a warrior she was. This is all happening very fast," Jake said carefully, trying to find words that wouldn't further escalate what was clearly becoming a volatile situation. "I wasn't expecting a marriage proposal. We've only known each other for 3 months, and most of that was through messages." "Time is irrelevant when compatibility is evident," Zara declared, though Jake noticed her grip tightening on the crystal pendant. "Your behavior tonight has demonstrated your suitability as a bonding partner. Are you saying this demonstration was deception?" "No deception," Jake said quickly, recognizing the accusation as potentially serious in Tyrannian culture. "Just misunderstanding. I genuinely wanted to show respect and learn about your culture, but not as a marriage proposal, more as friendship." The word friendship seemed to hit Zara like a physical blow. Her expression shifted through surprise, confusion, and what Jake was horrified to recognize as humiliation before settling into something cold and dangerous. "Friendship," she repeated, her voice deadly quiet. "Yes, friendship. Very good friendship, obviously. You're amazing, and I have tremendous respect for you. But marriage is a huge commitment that requires more time to consider." Zara slowly lowered the crystal pendant, her golden eyes never leaving Jake's face. "You believe I am unsuitable for permanent bonding?" "That's not what I said at all," Jake protested. "I'm saying that marriage, bonding, whatever we call it, is a major life decision that shouldn't be made over dinner, no matter how nice the dinner is." "I see," Zara said, her voice taking on formal military tones. "And you believe this decision requires further evaluation of my worthiness." Jake realized he was stepping into dangerous territory, but honesty seemed like the only viable path forward. "I believe it requires us to know each other better. What you're suggesting is permanent, life-changing. That's not something I can agree to based on a few months of messages and one dinner." The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension Jake didn't fully understand. Zara's expression had gone completely neutral, which somehow seemed more threatening than anger would have been. "I understand your position," she said finally, placing the crystal pendant back in her pocket. "You require additional proof of compatibility before committing to permanent bonding." "It's not about proof," Jake tried to explain. "It's about taking time to develop a deeper relationship, getting to know each other as people, not just as representatives of our species." "I see," Zara repeated, settling back into her chair with fluid grace. "Then perhaps you would prefer to conclude this evening's activities." Jake felt like he'd missed something crucial, but the immediate crisis seemed to have passed. "We could do that, or we could continue talking. I'd like to understand more about Tyrannian bonding customs, and maybe you could help me figure out where my research went wrong. Your research was quite accurate, Zara said, signaling their server with a gesture that somehow conveyed authority despite its subtlety. The error was in your interpretation of the consequences. What do you mean? Among my people, when a worthy male demonstrates courtship behavior and then rejects a formal bonding offer, it creates certain obligations. The way she said obligations made Jake's stomach drop. What kind of obligations? The rejected female must prove her worthiness through alternative means, Zara explained as their server approached nervously. She must demonstrate that the male's rejection was based on insufficient understanding of her capabilities. And how does she do that? Zara's smile returned, but this time it held no warmth whatsoever. Through honorable combat, of course. Jake stared at her. Combat? A formal challenge designed to showcase the rejected female's strength, intelligence, and determination. The male is given opportunities to reconsider his decision as the female proves her superiority in various chosen arenas. You're talking about fighting me? I am talking about proving my worthiness through demonstrations of capability that will allow you to make a more informed decision about bonding, Zara corrected. The format is quite civilized, really. A series of challenges that test different aspects of compatibility. Jake's mind raced through the implications. And if I still say no after these challenges, then you will have definitively established that we are incompatible, and I will accept your rejection with honor, Zara said reasonably. But until that determination is made, you remain a valid bonding prospect, and I remain obligated to prove my worthiness. What if I just say no right now definitively? Zara's expression grew thoughtful. Are you prepared to state before witnesses that I am fundamentally unsuitable as a bonding partner? That no amount of additional evidence could change your position? Jake looked around the restaurant, suddenly aware that dozens of beings from various species were still watching their conversation with rapt attention. Many were recording the interaction, no doubt fascinated by what was apparently a rare display of Tyrannian bonding customs. I can't make that kind of absolute statement about someone I barely know, Jake admitted. Then we proceed with the challenges, Zara concluded, rising from her chair once again. Jake Morrison of Earth, I Zara Vel'nathi, invoke the right of worthiness proof. You will be given 7 opportunities to witness my capabilities across 7 different domains of compatibility. 7 challenges? Jake's voice came out higher than intended. 7 is the traditional number, Zara confirmed, her military bearing now fully engaged. Physical prowess, intellectual capacity, resource management, cultural adaptation, artistic expression, tactical thinking, and emotional resilience. And if I fail to be convinced after all 7, then you may reject my bonding offer with full honor, and I will accept that rejection gracefully, Zara said. But Jake Morrison, I should mention that in 3,000 years of recorded Tyrannian history, no male has ever remained unconvinced after witnessing all 7 proofs of worthiness. Jake felt the walls of the elegant restaurant closing in around him. What exactly am I agreeing to hear? Nothing permanent, Zara assured him, though her smile suggested she was supremely confident in the eventual outcome. Simply an opportunity for me to demonstrate why we would make exceptional bonding partners. Each challenge will be fair, appropriate to your human limitations, and designed to showcase compatibility rather than dominance. My human limitations? Your species lacks certain physical capabilities that mine possesses, Zara explained matter-of-factly. The challenges will be scaled appropriately to ensure fairness while still allowing me to demonstrate my worthiness. Jake realized he was trapped. Refusing outright would be an insult to Zara and her culture, potentially damaging human-Tyrannian relations. But agreeing seemed to lock him into some kind of elaborate courtship ritual he'd never intended to begin. How long do these 7 challenges typically take? He asked weakly. That depends entirely on your learning speed, Zara replied cheerfully. Some males require only days to recognize superior compatibility. Others need weeks to overcome their initial resistance to bonding. And there's no way to just talk this through like reasonable adults? Zara's expression grew serious. Jake Morrison, you have demonstrated respect for my culture by studying our ways. I am now demonstrating respect for your culture by offering you a systematic method to evaluate my suitability as a life partner. This is reasonable adult behavior according to both our species standards. Jake looked around the restaurant again, seeing the expectant faces of beings from across the galaxy. Someone in the back was placing bets on the outcome. A table of Altarian diplomats was taking detailed notes, probably already drafting reports about unprecedented human-Tyrannian cultural interactions. Fine, he said, the word coming out before he could stop it. But I want to establish ground rules. No actual violence, no permanent damage to property or persons, and I get to return to my normal life between challenges. Acceptable terms. Zara agreed immediately, though I should clarify that the challenges will necessarily impact your normal routine. Proving worthiness requires comprehensive demonstration. What does that mean? It means, Jake Morrison, that your life is about to become considerably more interesting, Zara said, extending her hand in what Jake recognized as a formal agreement gesture from his cultural research. Do we have an accord? Jake stared at her outstretched hand, knowing that taking it would fundamentally change his quiet researcher's life in ways he couldn't begin to predict. But the alternative seemed to be creating an interstellar incident over dinner etiquette, and his scientific curiosity was beginning to override his caution. Besides, how difficult could 7 challenges be? He reached out and clasped Zara's hand, noting how her grip was firm enough to remind him of her superior strength without being painful. Accord, he agreed. Zara's smile blazed with triumph and something else Jake couldn't identify. Excellent. The first challenge begins tomorrow at dawn. Dawn? What's the first challenge? Physical prowess, naturally, Zara said, already moving toward the restaurant's exit. I will collect you at your residence at 0600 hours. Wear appropriate exercise attire. Wait, Jake called after her, suddenly remembering practical concerns. What about dinner? The bill? Zara paused at the restaurant's entrance, turning back with an expression of mild confusion. What about it? Someone needs to pay for the meal. The meal was part of your courtship demonstration, Zara replied as if this should be obvious. Naturally. You are responsible for the expenses. But you're the one who challenged me to prove your worthiness. Shouldn't that make it your responsibility? Zara's golden eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you suggesting that I should finance my own worthiness demonstration? That would imply I am purchasing your consideration rather than earning it through merit. Jake realized he'd stumbled into another cultural minefield. No, that's not what I meant. I just thought ... never mind. I'll handle the bill. I thought you might, Zara said, her smile returning. Until tomorrow, Jake Morrison. Prepare yourself for enlightenment. She swept out of the restaurant, leaving Jake standing beside their table with a check that cost more than his monthly rent, and the growing realization that he'd just agreed to the most complicated courtship ritual in galactic history. The Mater D approached discreetly. Will there be anything else this evening, sir? Jake looked at the astronomical total on the bill, then at the dozens of beings still staring at him with fascination and amusement. Yeah, he said, reaching for his wallet. Do you have any advice? For someone who just accidentally agreed to marry a Tyrannian warrior princess. The Altarian's forearms gestured in what Jake recognized as sympathetic commiseration. Based on historical precedent, sir, I would recommend improving your life insurance coverage. Jake signed the check with shaking hands, wondering what exactly he'd gotten himself into. Outside the restaurant's windows, he could see Zara's command shuttle departing for her ship in orbit, its running lights disappearing into the star-filled darkness that tomorrow at dawn, his new life would begin. Whether that life would end in marriage or disaster remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. He was never going to live this down. Jake's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., though he'd been awake for the past hour staring at his ceiling and questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. Through his apartment window, he could see the first hints of dawn creeping across New Tokyo's skyline, along with what appeared to be a Tyrannian military shuttle, hovering exactly 50 meters above his building. Got his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Good morning, Jake Morrison. I trust you slept well. Report to the rooftop in appropriate physical training attire." VV Jake groaned and rolled out of bed. His research into Tyrannian culture had mentioned their fondness for punctuality, but he hadn't expected military precision to extend to casual courtship rituals. Then again, nothing about this situation was casual. He pulled on workout clothes, grabbed a protein bar, and made his way to the building's roof access. The Tyrannian shuttle waited with engines idling, its sleek design making his apartment building's emergency helicopter pad looked primitive by comparison. As Jake stepped onto the roof, the shuttle's hatch hissed open. Zara emerged wearing what could only be described as the most intimidating workout outfit Jake had ever seen. The form-fitting garment appeared to be made from some kind of adaptive fabric that shifted color subtly as she moved, and Jake was fairly certain he spotted armor plating worked into the design. Her violet hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and she moved with the fluid grace of a predator. "Punctual," she observed approvingly. "An excellent quality in a potential bonding partner." "About that," Jake began, but Zara was already gesturing toward the shuttle. "We will discuss details during transport. Please board." Jake climbed into the shuttle, immediately overwhelmed by the advanced technology surrounding him. The interior was spacious despite the craft's sleek exterior, with seats that automatically adjusted to his human physiology. Holographic displays showed flight path, atmospheric conditions, and what appeared to be a detailed analysis of Jake's vital signs. "Destination?" he asked as Zara settled into the pilot's seat with practiced ease. "Mount Fuji Training Facility," Zara replied, her hands dancing over controls that responded to her touch with musical tones. "I have secured exclusive access to their enhanced gravity chambers." "Enhanced gravity? How enhanced are we talking?" "Nothing excessive," Zara assured him as the shuttle lifted off smoothly. "Merely double Earth normal to start. We will progress gradually based on your performance." Jake's stomach dropped along with the cityscape below them. "Zara, I'm a xenobiology researcher. My idea of physical exercise is walking to the lab's coffee machine." "Which is precisely why this challenge is necessary," Zara explained matter-of-factly. "A proper bonding partner must be capable of accompanying me in various environments. Many of the worlds I visit have gravitational fields significantly stronger than Earth's. But I'm not planning to visit other worlds with you. That would require us to actually be bonded, which is the whole point of contention here." Zara's golden eyes met his in the shuttle's reflective surface. "The challenges are designed to demonstrate compatibility across all aspects of shared life. How can you make an informed decision about bonding without understanding what that life would entail?" Jake had to admit her logic was sound, even if her methods were terrifying. "What exactly does the physical prowess challenge involve?" "Standard Tyrannian military fitness assessment," Zara said cheerfully. "Modified for human limitations, naturally. Strength, endurance, agility, combat reflexes, pain tolerance." "Pain tolerance?" "Within reasonable parameters," Zara clarified. "I am not seeking to injure you, merely to assess your capacity for resilience under stress." The Mount Fuji facility appeared ahead of them, a complex of gleaming buildings nestled against the mountain's base. Jake could see other training shuttles coming and going, suggesting this was a popular destination for beings seeking to push their physical limits. As they landed, Jake noticed several other species represented among the facility's users. A group of Eltarian diplomats were practicing what appeared to be zero-gravity maneuvering, while a squad of human marines worked through obstacle courses under the supervision of instructors from various worlds. The facility caters to interspecies training requirements, Zara explained, leading Jake toward a private entrance. I have reserved Training Bay 7 for our exclusive use. Training Bay 7 turned out to be a massive chamber filled with equipment Jake didn't recognize and wasn't entirely sure he wanted to understand. Holographic projectors created a three-dimensional environment that could apparently simulate any planetary conditions in the known galaxy. We begin with basic assessment, Zara announced, approaching a control panel that responded to her voice commands in melodic Tyrannian. Computer, establish baseline human parameters for subject Jake Morrison. Sensors emerged from hidden panels, scanning Jake with lights that made his skin tingle. Within moments, a holographic display showed what appeared to be a comprehensive analysis of his physical capabilities. Fascinating, Zara murmured, studying the readouts. Your muscle density is quite good for a researcher. Do you engage in regular physical activity? I walk to work, Jake offered weakly. And sometimes I take the stairs instead of the elevator. Commendable dedication to fitness maintenance, Zara said with complete sincerity. Computer, design. Training protocol suitable for human baseline with 15% capability enhancement target. The chamber transformed around them, gravity increasing noticeably as obstacles rose from the floor. What had been an empty space became an elaborate course. That looked like it belonged in a military academy. The objective is simple, Zara explained, moving to Jake's side. Navigate the course while maintaining optimal time and technique. I will demonstrate first. Jake watched in awe as Zara flowed through the obstacle course like liquid mercury. She vaulted over barriers that would have required Jake to climb, ducked under energy beams with impossible flexibility, and completed the entire circuit in what seemed like seconds. Her movements were poetry in motion, demonstrating strength, grace, and precision that left Jake feeling completely inadequate. Your turn, she announced, not even breathing hard despite the increased gravity. Jake approached the first obstacle, a wall roughly twice his height. In normal gravity, it would have been challenging. In the enhanced field, it felt like trying to climb while wearing a backpack full of concrete. Remember, Zara called encouragingly, this is not about perfection. It is about effort and improvement. Jake managed to haul himself over the wall after 3 attempts, landing heavily on the other side. The next obstacle was a series of moving platforms that required precise timing to cross. Jake fell into the safety net twice before successfully making it across. Excellent progress, Zara observed, though Jake suspected she was being kind. Your determination is admirable. The course continued with challenges that tested balance, coordination, and what Zara optimistically called combat reflexes. Jake's combat reflexes apparently consisted primarily of falling down and hoping for the best, but he gradually began to improve as his body adapted to the unusual conditions. You learn quickly, Zara noted as Jake successfully completed a section that had defeated him multiple times. This suggests good mental adaptability. Is that important for bonding compatibility? Jake asked, pausing to catch his breath. Essential, Zara replied seriously. My duties require frequent travel to worlds with varying conditions. A bonding partner must be capable of adaptation and growth. What if your bonding partner had different duties that didn't require interplanetary travel? Zara considered this. An interesting hypothetical. However, bonding implies shared life paths. How could we build a meaningful partnership if our duties kept us constantly separated? Jake realized this was a fair point. In his imagination of what a relationship with Zara might look like, he'd somehow skipped over the practical realities of their vastly different careers and lifestyles. "Computer," Zara commanded. "Initiate combat simulation, level 1. The obstacle course vanished, replaced by what appeared to be a medieval arena. Holographic opponents materialized around them, humanoid figures wielding energy weapons that looked disturbingly realistic. "Combat?" Jake squeaked. "Simulated combat," Zara clarified, drawing her ceremonial blade. The weapon hung to life, its edge glowing with contained energy. "The holograms cannot cause permanent harm, though they will provide realistic feedback for impacts." "Realistic feedback?" "Think of it as very sophisticated training," Zara said, moving into a combat stance that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Observe my technique, then attempt to replicate it." What followed was 15 minutes of the most elegant violence Jake had ever witnessed. Zara moved through the holographic opponents like a dancer, her blade leaving trails of light as she defeated enemy after enemy with moves that seemed choreographed by the gods themselves. "Your turn," she announced as the simulation reset. Picked up a training weapon that felt absurdly heavy in his hands. The first holographic opponent approached, moving slowly in what was clearly a beginner-friendly setting. Jake swung the weapon clumsily, missing entirely and nearly losing his balance. The holographic opponent tapped him gently with its weapon, and Jake felt a mild electric shock that suggested he'd been defeated. "Technique requires refinement," Zara observed diplomatically. "However, your willingness to engage is noteworthy." After an hour of humiliating defeat, Jake managed to land a hit on one of the training holograms. Zara's genuine excitement at his minor success was both endearing and slightly embarrassing. "Excellent. You are beginning to understand the principles of combat flow." "I got lucky," Jake protested. "Luck is simply preparation meeting opportunity." Zara replied, "You are preparing, therefore you are improving." As the morning progressed, Jake found himself actually enjoying the challenge despite his complete lack of natural ability. Zara was an excellent instructor, patient and encouraging, while maintaining standards that pushed him to perform better than he thought possible. "Final assessment," Zara announced as they approached noon. "Demonstrate what you have learned." The simulation created a scenario that combined elements from all the morning's training. Jake had to navigate obstacles while avoiding holographic attackers, using both physical skill and tactical thinking to reach an objective point. To his amazement, he completed the course. Not quickly, not gracefully, but successfully. "Outstanding improvement," Zara declared, and Jake could hear genuine pride in her voice. "You have exceeded baseline expectations by 23%. Is that good? For a researcher with no prior combat training, attempting Tyrannian military protocols, it is exceptional." Jake felt an unexpected surge of pride. He'd actually managed to impress a warrior princess, even if only slightly. "So did I pass the physical prowess challenge?" he asked. Zara's expression grew thoughtful. "You have demonstrated admirable qualities: determination, adaptability, willingness to learn, and courage in facing unfamiliar challenges. However, physical compatibility involves more than single-day performance." "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow we will assess your capacity for sustained physical effort over multiple days. Then we will test your performance under various environmental conditions. True physical compatibility requires comprehensive evaluation." Jake's heart sank. "How long does the physical prowess challenge last?" "Typically 5 to 7 days, Zara said matter-of-factly, though exceptional candidates have completed it in as few as 3. And there are 6 more challenges after this. 1. Correct. Each designed to thoroughly assess different aspects of bonding compatibility." Jake did quick mental math and realized he was looking at weeks, possibly months, of elaborate courtship challenges. His quiet researcher's life was about to become a full-time compatibility assessment program. "Zara," he said carefully, "what happens to my actual job while we're doing all this? I have taken the liberty of discussing your situation with the director of the Xenobiology Institute," Zara replied casually. "You what?" Director Harrison was quite understanding when I explained the cultural significance of the worthiness trials. "She has granted you extended leave for interspecies diplomatic research, apparently. The Institute is quite interested in documenting Tyrannian bonding customs from a human perspective." Jake stared at her. "You talked to my boss about our fake engagement." "Not fake," Zara corrected firmly. "Potential. And I described it as an opportunity for unprecedented cultural exchange, which is entirely accurate. Did you mention that I never intended to propose to you?" I explained that human courtship customs differ significantly from ours, and that these trials would help determine cross-species compatibility. Director Harrison seemed fascinated by the research possibilities. Jake realized that Zara had effectively maneuvered him into a position where backing out would not only insult her culture, but also disappoint his academic institution's interest in interspecies relations. "You're very thorough," he said grudgingly. "Thoroughness is essential for successful military command," Zara replied. "Also for successful bonding partnerships." As they prepared to leave the training facility, Jake caught sight of himself in a reflective surface. Despite the morning's humiliation, he looked more energetic than he had in months. The exercise had been exhausting, but oddly invigorating. "Tomorrow," Zara announced as they boarded the shuttle, "we will test your endurance capabilities in a mountain environment. I have arranged access to a Himalayan training peak." "Himalayan? As in Mount Everest region?" "Nothing so extreme," Zara assured him. "Merely a 4,000-meter peak with moderate climbing requirements." "Moderate by whose standards?" "Tyrannian expedition protocols," Zara said cheerfully. "Though I have arranged for full environmental support and emergency medical backup." Jake slumped in his seat as New Tokyo appeared ahead of them. One challenge down, 6 to go, and he was already exhausted. But despite his apprehension, he had to admit that Zara's approach was working. He was learning things about himself he'd never known, pushing boundaries he'd never tested. "Question," he said as they approached his building. "Yes? What happens if I actually enjoy these challenges? Does that automatically mean we're compatible?" Zara's smile was mysterious and oddly hopeful. "That, Jake Morrison, is precisely what we are trying to determine." As the shuttle landed on his rooftop, Jake realized that somewhere between the obstacle course and the combat training, his perspective had shifted. He was no longer just trying to survive Zara's courtship campaign. He was genuinely curious about what she would show him next. "Rest well," Zara called as he disembarked. "Tomorrow we discover what you are truly capable of." Jake watched the shuttle disappear into the afternoon sky, then made his way down to his apartment. His body ached in places he'd forgotten he had muscles, but his mind was oddly energized. He had 6 more challenges ahead of him, each designed to test different aspects of his compatibility with the most fascinating woman he'd ever met. The smart thing would be to find a graceful way out before things went any further. But as Jake looked at his reflection in his apartment window, he realized he didn't want to take the smart way out. For the first time in his life, someone was challenging him to be more than he thought possible. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. 2 weeks into the worthiness trials, Jake Morrison barely recognized his own life. The quiet xenobiology researcher who once considered walking to the coffee machine adequate exercise was now scaling Himalayan peaks with a Tyrannian warrior princess, solving quantum equations, while dodging plasma fire in zero gravity. Each challenge had pushed him beyond his perceived limitations. Intellectual capacity had lasted 3 days of collaborative problem-solving that impressed even Zara's military advisors. Resource management involved running a simulated colony where his careful planning perfectly complemented her strategic Thinking. Cultural adaptation took them to alien worlds where they learned each other's social protocols. Now they stood in Zara's private strategy room aboard her command ship, having just completed the tactical thinking assessment. The holographic battle simulation flickered out, leaving them surrounded by star charts and the afterglow of victory against impossible odds. "Your flanking maneuver was inspired," Zara said, studying the tactical display. "Using gravitational anomalies as weapons never occurred to me." "Your formation created the perfect setup," Jake replied. "I just saw the pattern." Through the viewport, stars streamed past as they traveled to their final destination. Jake felt a familiar thrill at Zara's praise, but by now he recognized it as more than ego satisfaction. Working with her had become addictive, her brilliant mind challenging him while her warrior instincts provided frameworks for implementing ideas that would have remained theoretical fantasies. "One challenge remains," Zara announced, her expression growing serious. "Emotional resilience. What does that involve?" "Complete honesty about our feelings and intentions." Jake's pulse quickened. Something fundamental had changed between them over the past weeks. What began as reluctant cultural obligation had evolved into genuine partnership. He found himself anticipating each challenge, not just for personal growth, but for time with Zara. "These challenges," he said carefully, "they're not really about proving your worthiness, are they?" Zara's expression became vulnerable. "What do you mean?" "You're already worthy. Any fool can see that. You're brilliant, courageous, honorable, beautiful, and capable of impossible things. If this was about proving your value, we could have finished in the first hour. Then what do you believe these trials have been about?" Jake moved to the viewport, looking out at increasingly familiar stars. "I think they've been about proving something to me. Not about you, but about myself." "Explain." 2 weeks ago, I was a researcher studying alien life from safe distances. I had no idea what I was capable of. You've been showing me who I could become." Zara joined him at the viewport. "And who is that?" "Someone worthy of standing beside you. Someone who could share your life among the stars." "Is that what you want?" The question carried the weight of everything they'd discovered together. Jake thought about his old life-quiet laboratory routines and academic conferences. Then the past weeks, exhilaration of mastering new skills, joy of intellectual collaboration, profound satisfaction of partnership with someone who challenged him to be his best self. "Yes," he said simply, "but not because your challenges convinced me. Because I've fallen in love with who I am when I'm with you." Zara's breath caught. "Jake Morrison, are you accepting my bonding offer? I'm making you a counter-offer." Jake withdrew something from his pocket, a device he'd constructed in the ship's fabrication bay. Clearly human in design, but built according to Tyrannian principles he'd learned. "Zara Vel'nathi," he said, dropping to one knee in traditional human proposal posture. "I offer you this bonding crystal as symbol of my intention to join our lives in permanent union." Zara stared at the crystal, cycling through shock, joy, and tears. "You created a bonding crystal?" "I adapted traditional designs using human materials and techniques. It represents fusion of our cultures, like our partnership represents fusion of our capabilities." "This is irregular," Zara said, voice thick with emotion. "Males don't offer bonding crystals during worthiness trials. Maybe it's time for new traditions. We've proven human and Tyrannian approaches work better together." Zara knelt, bringing them to the same level. "Your offer creates complications. If both parties offer crystals simultaneously, Tyrannian law requires dual challenge scenarios. 14 trials total." Jake grinned. "That could take months." "It could," Zara agreed, smile matching his. "Though we might combine assessments for efficiency." "There's just one problem," Jake said. "What problem?" "If we're both proving worthiness to each other, who pays for dinner?" Zara's laughter filled the chamber. Shared responsibility, as all things will be in our bonded life. I like the sound of that. Do we have an accord? They held out their crystals simultaneously. The devices hummed in harmony, energy patterns synchronizing as they drew closer. When their hands touched the exchanged crystals, light blazed through them both, creating a connection deeper than physical sensation, as if their thoughts and emotions had gained new dimensions. Is this normal? Jake asked, marveling at the awareness of Zara's presence in his mind. Not remotely, Zara breathed. Bonding crystals shouldn't create psychic links until formal ceremony. Through their connection, Jake felt her amazement and joy, along with deeper emotion that took his breath away. She loved him completely, not as a project to complete, but as a partner, who made her feel more whole than she'd imagined possible. Jake, she said softly, I need to tell you something. These trials were never about proving worthiness. From the first challenge, you possessed all qualities I could want. The trials were about giving you time to discover you wanted this life without pressure. You manipulated me into falling in love. I created opportunities for you to fall in love. With yourself, Zara corrected. The person you became during challenges was always who you were. I simply provided circumstances for discovery. And if I'd said no after all 7 challenges, I would have accepted your decision with honor. But I would have spent my life knowing that somewhere in the galaxy was the one person who could have been my perfect partner. The sincerity in her voice, amplified by their emotional connection, left Jake speechless. For what it's worth, he said finally, your strategy worked perfectly. Our strategy, Zara corrected. You chose to engage rather than endure. You chose growth over resistance. Their crystals pulsed with synchronized light as Zara moved to the navigation console. So what happens now? Now we begin the real adventure. 14 challenges to complete, 7 worlds to visit, and entirely new partnership to invent. Jake thought about his laboratory, his quiet routine of studying alien life from safe distances. Then he looked at Zara, offering him life among stars. That would make his previous existence seem like pale shadow. Actually, he said, I think it's time I submitted my resignation. I've found a new research specialty requiring extensive field work. What specialty? Interspecies relationship dynamics. I understand there's serious shortage of data on human Tyrannian romantic partnerships. Indeed. Such research would require decades of close observation. A lifetime's work, really. Jake moved beside her at the console, looking out at vast star expanse that would become their laboratory. Computer, set course for nearest challenge world, and send message to Earth. Message content? Tell Director Harrison, her xenobiology researcher, discovered the most fascinating alien life form in the galaxy, and he needs extended leave to study it properly. Zara's laughter filled the bridge as the ship turned toward their destination. Through bonding crystals, Jake felt her joy echo his own, multiplied by connection forged across vast differences between species. Jake Morrison, she said as stars streamed past viewports, this partnership will exceed all expectations. Commander Vel'nathi, Jake replied, taking her hand as they watched universe unfold before them. I'm counting on it. Behind them, Earth dwindled the distant point of light, but ahead lay infinite possibilities for two beings who discovered the most unlikely partnerships could become strongest bonds. Their accidental courtship had become genuine love story, and their future stretched among stars like unwritten book full of adventures yet to be discovered. After all, they had 14 challenges to complete, marriage to plan, and galaxies to explore together. The bill for dinner seemed very small price to pay for love spanning the cosmos. Jake Morrison's quiet life had ended when he offered to split the check with a Tyrannian warrior princess. But the extraordinary life he'd gained, full of challenges, growth, and transcendent love, proved that sometimes the best adventures begin with the most innocent misunderstandings. The end up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.